Imagiverse Studios presents Tales from the Horrorweb, an audio-only series based on the short stories by Gavin Pryor. Tonight's episode is called No Strings Attached. When Scott's family brings in new puppets, they seem to be rather strange, rather odd, rather alive. May 13th, 1943. It was a nice and warm spring here in Nantucket. Not a lot goes on in that town, but it was a really good place to live at. Eddie, my brother, was outside fishing near the docks. He is trying to catch a really big one. He sometimes dreams of being a sailor, exploring the fine seas on a boat. Susan, my little sister, was always trying to escape to a world of books. She would usually visit the library and pick out a few books for her to take home. I do visit the library sometimes, so that one day I would be able to share my knowledge of the entire world. I've wanted to be a teacher. During my free time, I would usually look out the window to see the occasional seagulls flying around. My mother would place the breadcrumbs on the windowsill as a way of feeding them. She runs a bird sanctuary a few blocks away from our house. One of the best things I know about my family was my father. He's an excellent toy maker who owns a toy shop across town. I usually visit him each week after school to help out with something I like to do. Me and him like to run puppet shows. There will be a different performance each week, so it's different. He got his friends to build a puppet theater, so huge that we have enough space for more people. We would often change the scenery for different kinds of scenes we would do. Of course, Eddie would be their writer for the plays we would do. Aside from the usual toys that he and his employees would make, he also makes these puppets with skill and craft. He was also quite the artist, judging from the fact that he would paint the puppets. Even though we were going through rough times, our business was still booming. Many children would come and see our shows, even Susan. They were amazed on how he mastered all of the puppets. Sometimes I was invited to choose one puppet and master the arts. I was thinking of all the fun memories I had. However, today was much different than it ever was. There was no show this week. I wonder why he had to cancel a weekly performance. Was it because there was a problem at the store that my father needed to take care of? It was because he was out of town for a week on a business trip to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Today is the day he is coming home, and I was waiting for him. I was hoping he wouldn't be late because the sun was starting to set. I went downstairs to the living room, where I saw Eddie sitting down on the couch, listening to his favorite radio show. I didn't want to bother him, so I decided to wait outside by the docks. After a few minutes of waiting, a green car showed up in the middle of the driveway. It looks like my father has returned. I got up the moment he got out of his car. He walked over to me with a black box he was carrying in his hands. I didn't know what was inside, but I was feeling a bit curious to see what it was. "I found this at the store that was going out of business," said Leonard. "It was a good bargain, so I thought maybe I would show this to you." "What's in here, Dad?" said Scott. "Well," said Leonard, "they didn't explain what it was, but they did see my show. They decided to give me this for half the price. I can show you what it could be. Let's get inside before it gets too dark out." When we got inside, we went to the living room as Eddie, Susan, and my mother waited for us to come back inside. He placed the box down on the table as they watched. "Where have you been?" said Florence. "I've been waiting for you to return for like a few hours." "I got into a traffic jam," said Leonard, "but I did manage to get something that I think the entire family might just like. And I could also use this for future performances." That's what the people who ran the store have said. "What is it, Dad?" said Susan. "It might be something new we could try out," said Leonard. "Well, open it already," said Eddie. Now, Eddie, said Florence. We must wait and see what it could be. Well, said Leonard, I've just went through the store that was going out of business. I checked it out and found out that they gave me a present at half the price. It was really good. Does everyone in this family want to see what it could be? Open the box, said Susan. Open the box! Hearing my sister say that nearly gave me a headache, but I didn't mind it. We all gathered around as my father was prepared to open the box. My excitement grew as his fingers reached the latches. He unlocked the box and opened it. Inside were two puppets. One was wearing a red coat, a black and white shirt in a zigzag pattern, dark blue pants, brown boots, and a monocle. Its face looked like a smiling mask, the kind you would see in a theater next to the frowning one. The next one on the right wore a gray cloak, a ruby medallion, and black shoes. Its face resembled what appeared to be a cat with hollow eyes, black nose, and no mouth. I smiled for a bit before I noticed something that was completely different from all the other puppets my father made. There were supposed to be strings on them, but as it turns out, there was none of them. There are no strings attached to them. I feel like this is something straight out of Pinocchio. It's one of those fairy tales Susan was talking about. I didn't mind, but Eddie was a bit skeptical about these puppets. I'm confused, said Eddie. How are we supposed to move those puppets with no strings? I think those might be dolls. They're not dolls, said Leonard. Those are puppets. Why are they without strings? Said Florence. That sounds a bit odd. Well, said Leonard, it might look like these puppets are very special. We're not sure what they do yet, but I figured we might need to do a demonstration before we use them. Not until they get attached with strings, said Eddie. They might have forgotten to do that before they created the final product. I could tell that Eddie was a bit of an expert on puppets. I had no idea what else I was in for, but without strings, I think there might be a reason why that would be impossible for us to control them. Just as I was about to watch, I noticed something else inside of the box. It looked like there was some sort of piece of paper. I picked it up and found out that it was a note. To whom it may concern. These puppets you are in possession with have been made special for you. They are without string, as you see here. While understandable that these might not be puppets, they hold a special talent that I'm sure that you may be surprised about. These puppets were crafted by hand and are for every show you can imagine. You are still in control of them, but I can assure you, with no strings attached, they're a special kind. I hope you will enjoy working with them as much as I do. Sincerely, Marley Hatchet. I gave this note to Dad after giving it a read. I didn't understand what it meant, but how am I supposed to control these puppets if there are no strings? I just don't get it. Marley did control his puppets with something, said Leonard, but I don't know how, but it looks like something that I might need to look over. Eddie reached inside of the box to see what else is inside. I thought the box would be empty the moment he reached inside. To my surprise, it wasn't empty. There was 2 necklaces. One of them had a different gem, one green and one blue. Each of them is attached to a silver pendant. It comes with jewelry? Said Eddie. Now, Eddie, said Florence. This is something new. Those necklaces were probably part of it. Why don't the 2 of you put them on? I don't know, said Eddie. They might do nothing if we wear these. Out of curiosity, I decided to take the blue one and wear it on my neck. We waited to see what would happen, but it looks like as if nothing was happening. We waited another 5 minutes, and still nothing. The puppets didn't even make a single move. Well, anything yet? Said Leonard. I've just wasted 5 minutes of my time, Scott said. I'd say give it some time, said Florence. As 10 minutes passed by, nothing was still happening. As I tried to take the necklace off, I couldn't help but notice that one of the puppets just twitched its arm. Did I do something? It moved! It moved! Said Susan. I was just looking out the window, said Eddie. I don't see it move, said Leonard. My father didn't believe me. Well, that's what I thought at first until I saw the puppet twitch again. I don't know what was going on. I took the necklace off and ran to my room as I held on to it. As I sat down at my desk, I wondered if I was able to control the puppet with not a single string, but a simple tool that made them move. I looked at the necklace and checked the back of the pendant. I couldn't find anything. I placed it back on my neck again to see if it would do anything. I waited in my room until I started to hear some footsteps. I quickly got up from my desk and opened the door. I looked around the hallway and saw nothing. Scott, said Eddie, will you please keep it down? That's not me, Scott said. Well, said Eddie, someone is running around in the hallway. I don't remember running around the hallway, but as soon as I went back to my room, I heard them again. This time, it was getting closer. I quickly went back to my room and sat down at my desk. I heard them coming faster and faster until it was inside of my room. I looked behind me to see the puppet with the head of the cat. I called it Paws, named after our pet cat we used to have back then. Paws was standing near the doorway of my room. I walked over to it and picked it up. I don't understand how it got there, but it was a little of what I discovered. As soon as I examined it closely, its hand moved. I dropped it and it landed feet first. It then started to run up to my desk and hopped on the windowsill. It looks like the puppet was moving. I don't even know how it was able to do that, but it seemed almost impossible for it to do that. I looked at the necklace I was wearing on my neck. Could that be the key to controlling the puppets? My answer rang true. As soon as I thought about it hopping back on the desk, it did as I thought it would. I guess my thoughts are connected to this necklace. I guess this might be my thought necklace. My father came into my room and saw what I was doing. He saw that my puppet was moving. I was thinking about it picking up a pencil, and it was doing what I was thinking. I explained this whole thing to him. Well, Scott, said Leonard, I guess we figured out what it's controlled by. Thought. I think I will go show my brother what is going on, Scott said. We will explain it to him tomorrow, said Leonard. As soon as my father left, I took the necklace off and the puppet stopped moving. I picked it up and placed it on my shelf. The next day at my father's toy shop, I showed Eddie what I can do with the puppet. He was holding on the smiling mask puppet I called Smiler. At first, Eddie was a bit of a skeptic. I thought about the puppet picking up a small apple I made with a piece of paper. When it did that, my brother was surprised. Where are the wires? Said Eddie. I don't believe that I am seeing this happen in front of my eyes. Maybe to you, said Scott, but this is the reality. We can control these puppets with our thoughts and necklaces. We can? Said Eddie. I never thought this was possible. Try it out, said Scott. I watched as my brother put the necklace on and placed Smiler on the table. I watched as my brother put the necklace on and placed Smiler down on the table. He thought about Smiler picking up a glass of water on the table and pour it on the plant. As soon as he thought about that, Smiler picked it up and emptied the contents of the glass onto the plant. Eddie gasped as he saw what he just did. You were right, said Eddie. Can you believe how many shows we are about to do with these things? We might be able to make a fortune, said Scott. Well, said Eddie, there will be no plants to sell them. There will be lots of people paying to see our shows every week. We can use these puppets to perform. We can also do a tour all across the country. Think about it. We can visit every city, including New York City. The Big Apple? Said Scott. That's somewhere we can go to. We don't know for sure what show we can come up with, but it may look like that we could be able to do something we've never done before. Maybe have them as storytellers. Surely enough, our father approved the idea. On Paws and Smiler's first debut on the show, we hung a bunch of flyers advertising them. Lots of children and parents came over to see it. My friends from school even came over to see the new puppets. They were amazed on how we were able to control them with no strings. Never before have they seen anything like this. My father was teaching my mother how to control these puppets on string. We would voice them to give the atmosphere of them talking. Susan was here, stunned to see that there are no strings and that they are moving. Many audience members clapped at their amazing performances. Even though our parents control them with strings, we have the necklaces to control the two we have. This seemed like a new start for all of us. When our show was over, the audience left with grins on their faces. It was like they came to see a magic show and they saw something wonderful. We've made so much money off of our first show that we would be able to use them again for more shows. That future thought came into our heads. Paws and Smiler are the best performers we have ever seen. We made it possible with our special necklaces that gave them life. I wonder if the note meant anything. That's what I wanted to know. The moment I went home with glee, I ran up to my room with Paws following me. I took off the necklace as Paws went to sleep on my desk. I couldn't wait to use my puppet for the next show. Eddie is in his room, writing for the next show. As I was sleeping for the night, I noticed something that caught my eye. Smiler was walking in the halls. I thought Eddie was pulling a joke on me. As I walked to his room, I could see him typing out the script for the next show on his typewriter. The necklace was off. I think I might be dreaming a bit, but I don't know if I am. I walked back to my room as I didn't want to follow Smiler. The next day, I was walking to the kitchen to get myself some cereal for breakfast. I passed by what appears to be Susan's doll standing on the windowsill. I picked it up and brought it over to her room. She was getting her hair brushed. "Maybe next time, don't leave your toys in the kitchen," said Scott. "I thought I'd never find it," said Susan. "That doll was missing?" said Scott. "Just get out of my room," said Susan. "I'll be downstairs when I'm done." After I had finished my breakfast, I was riding my bike all the way through town. It was the weekend, so I don't have to go to school until Monday. I stopped over at Valerie's house for a moment. She was waiting for me. She came over to my show last night after she had heard about it. She liked it. "This was one performance you have done," said Valerie. "Paws was an excellent puppet that pulled off all the stops to tell stories. When will you do the next one?" "Well," said Scott, "since you asked, we do our shows every week." "I was thinking I could bring my own puppet," said Valerie. "I bought it at your father's store a few months ago." "Oh, that squirrel puppet my father made for you on your birthday?" said Scott. "I'll see what my father can do." "We can go talk with him if you like," said Valerie. "Eddie will write a very good story," said Scott. "I can assure you." "I can give him some ideas if you like," said Valerie. It sounded like a good idea to have Valerie added as a guest for the show. At the same time, I would want her in future shows as well. I was about to enter her house. I noticed something on the back of my bike. I saw Paws riding it. I picked him up and brought it with me, thinking I could show it to her. When we got to the living room, I put on the necklace and thought about Paws running to the bookshelf. At first, Valerie thought it wouldn't work. That's when she watched it run to the bookshelf. "That's really something," said Valerie. "No strings needed to control them. These must be magic." "I know," said Scott. "It's the power of those necklaces that make us think to control them." "That's incredible," said Valerie. "I wonder if my puppet would do that too." "I'm not sure how they made it," said Scott, "but this must be a special puppet I have." Where did your father get those things? Said Valerie. They sound expensive. It was at half price while he was on tour, said Scott. Cheap deal, said Valerie. The store he bought it from was closing down for good, so they had to do a sale, said Scott. That explains it, said Valerie. As I left Valerie's house, I was hoping that maybe this would be something I could be doing. She did say she wanted to feature her puppet in our show. I was hoping that my father will approve all of this before the show. It feels like I am ready to show off what I could know. I need to schedule a rehearsal for her, I thought to myself. When I got back home, I noticed something very weird. Smiler was standing on the table, holding what appears to be an ear of corn. I don't know what it was doing with it, but I would assume that's Eddie's other tricks to play on me. I laughed a little bit and walked over to my room. I couldn't figure out how that happened, but I couldn't even explain it. When I placed pause on the desk, he started to run over to the closet. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I wasn't even using the necklace to control it. Do I have control of the puppet with my mind? As soon as I thought about pause walking over to the desk, it instead went over to the nightstand and looked at me. Was I doing something very wrong? In the dining room, I was eating my dinner, and my family was carrying on a conversation about something. I peered from behind to see that Smiler was intentionally watching my family along with Paws. What was going on? Neither me or Eddie was wearing the necklaces that controlled them. Eddie saw what was happening and was shocked. We didn't speak up. We just sat and stared at the puppets. As we were finished with our dinner, I ran to my room and placed Paws in the closet. I'm hoping that he wouldn't be able to find his way out when I leave him alone. As I went to bed, I could hear the footsteps coming from the hallway. I'm not sure if these were the puppets, but it looks like it could be. I was scared to see what might be coming next. When I woke up, I tried to find Eddie anywhere. He wasn't in his room this morning. All I can find is Smiler. I'm wondering what was happening. Do I have to replace Eddie and allow Valerie to take over for him? That's what I was thinking. All of a sudden, I noticed that Paws was standing up on my desk. I didn't know what he was doing, but I noticed something on his hand. I examined it closely to find that it was some sort of piece of metal. I don't know where he got it from, but it was unusual. I don't know where the metal came from, but it looked like some sort of razor blade. Susan came into my room and looked around. "Where's Eddie?" said Susan. "Is he hiding in your closet again?" "No," said Scott. "I tried looking for him too. I think he just ran off." "Come downstairs for breakfast," said Susan, "and call your brother too." I tried to call for him, but he wouldn't respond. When we walked downstairs, our father was waiting for us with an announcement. "I have some unfortunate news," said Leonard. "Your brother is missing from this house. The police came by to our house and they have not found him yet. Until we can figure this out, we need a replacement for someone to play Smiler." "Gee, I don't know, Dad," said Susan. "Is this my chance to get Valerie to take control of Smiler?" "I think it might be." "I don't mean to bother you with a question, Dad," said Scott. "Are you willing to cast Valerie as a replacement?" My father thought about it for a moment before he answered. "I never actually thought about it, but I will go talk with her father on the phone," said Leonard. My dad went over to the phone and talked with him. I've waited in the dining room as I was eating my breakfast. The moment I was finished with my food, my father ran over here and sat down with me. "I have some good news, but also some bad news," said Leonard. "The good news is that Valerie can fill in for Eddie. The bad news is that we have to temporarily put Smiler on hiatus until Eddie is found." Her father said that everyone likes Eddie as Smiler so much. Without him, we wouldn't be able to have a show. "I understand," said Scott. "Not everyone can replace him." My mother came into the dining room with Smiler in her right hand. She placed him on the table and looked at my father. Did Eddie place smaller in my nightstand? Said Florence. I don't want to see any more of him in my room. I don't remember doing that, said Leonard. It must have moved on its own. Likely story, said Florence. She left the dining room and went out the door. As soon as she left, I stared at the puppet, thinking that it would move again. My thoughts would be proven correct, as I saw him got up and run over to the top of the shelf. We don't know what it was going to do, but it looked concerning, as I thought it would be. He picked up some sort of penknife and ran over to the front door. Once he opened the door, we saw it head outside. Now, we were very concerned about what was going to happen. The moment we got to the toy shop, Valerie was waiting for us in the theater with the puppet. The puppet of a squirrel that had white and gray fur and wore a green dress with black shoes. I've been hearing that Eddie couldn't make it because he is missing, said Valerie. Is that true? I hate to be saying this, but yes, said Florence. I promise he will be back someday the moment he is found. In the meantime, said Leonard, you and your puppet will be the proper replacement. For this show, you will tell the tale of Hansel and Gretel this week with Paws. That's the fairy tale I've been hearing about, said Valerie. We started our rehearsal around the afternoon. Our performance was excellent, and even Susan was liking it. Everything I think about what my puppet will do in my necklace will tell the puppet to perform the action. That's the secret I know about this puppet. Susan watched as my puppet danced around, walked, talked as I threw in some voices, and even carried around some stuff. I think the audience will be thrilled when we see this amazing performance. That's how I know our show will be a mega success. As Susan was about to cheer, the lights went out in the theater. We must have blown a fuse, said Scott. You think? Said Valerie. As soon as the lights turned back on, my father was gone. I had no idea where he is. We checked everywhere, and still he was nowhere to be found. And to make matters worse, Paws was gone too. I thought about him coming back on stage, but it looks like he wasn't coming back for sure. But he wasn't the only person who's gone. It was also my mom and my sister. My entire family had disappeared right in front of my eyes. I don't know where they are. We looked everywhere in the toy shop to find them, but they are nowhere. Me and Valerie ran out of the toy shop when the police arrived. After a few minutes, they told us that they were unable to find them. After much thought, I've decided to stay at Valerie's house for a while until they can complete their search. When we arrived, her father was waiting for us. We got into the living room. When we told him about what happened, he told us a story. It looks like I need to tell you this, said Kent. You see, the puppets can be controlled with the necklaces that can store your thoughts and put them into action. However, there is something wrong with them that you don't understand. These puppets are alive. It's no wonder why you have been seeing them move without you knowing. Sometimes they can be controlled, but it is only for a while until it's time. This is the third day, and it's supposed to be the time for the puppets to come alive. For you see, they are no longer controlled by necklaces. Instead, they are in control. That is entirely impossible for me to know all of this, but all of it seemed true. If I can no longer control the puppet with my necklace, then it's just a necklace that I can wear. I couldn't explain this for myself, other than the fact that I was about to see what I was about to witness. It was a stormy night a long time ago. I owned the same puppets I have when I was little. They were crafted by my mother. They were made during the eclipse of the sun. Somehow, she had found some special gems that brought the puppets to life. The necklaces were crafted as a gift for both her and my father. They just got married and thought they could wear these as part of their wedding gift. Somehow, the necklaces contained a special property that, when worn, would make the puppets move with their thoughts. They thought it was a special gift, so they used it for their shows they do. This went on for years and years, until they noticed the puppets they made can't take it anymore. "So, what happened?" said Scott. "The puppets had somehow become self-aware and took them all. I was next, but I managed to escape before it was too late. For all I know, I don't know what happened to them. I was 16 at the time my parents vanished. I was alone, but not until I had to sell these puppets. I had to leave town because of those things. I've moved here as a result. Now you understand why you shouldn't be around with these puppets. I don't even want to know what happened to my family." "I've heard this story before," said Valerie. "That's because you have not seen it yourself," said Scott. "What if my parents are okay?" "I'm not sure myself," said Kent. "But you and I will be returning to your parents' house first thing tonight. We are going to find them. For all I know, your brother could still be somewhere in this house. It looks like our search might not be over for us yet, but it will look hard." Valerie's father left the living room as we sat on the couch, shocked, looking at each other. Could this story be true? Could the puppets take my family? I couldn't even imagine what would happen to them. As I spent the rest of my day playing with Valerie, we played marbles and went outside to play football. As soon as it got dark out, we went to my house with Valerie's dad coming with us. We don't know how this search will go, but it looks like it's going to be a long search. "Okay," said Kent. "As soon as I am given the all clear from the sheriff, I must ask you to wait outside until I know. Don't move until instructed to do so." We sat down on the sidewalk and waited. I looked at the starry night sky while we all waited for him to come back. Me and Valerie could see the constellation Orion from above. Me and Eddie used to look up at the stars whenever we went outside every summer. I would always dream about going to outer space to see the many different planets. I wouldn't even know what I might see when I get there, but I always wished I could visit them. I was that kind of kid who would dream about space. We've waited for what seemed like about a few hours, but to our surprise, no one came out of my house, not a single soul. We were tired of waiting and decided to go in ourselves. When we got inside, we looked everywhere in the house for them. Every room we checked: the living room, 2 bathrooms, the kitchen, the dining room, and some of our bedrooms. I can't even imagine what other rooms there are. We looked everywhere and still nothing. Not even the puppets we had are there either. Valerie pointed out to the basement door. I ran over there to see what was going on. I was normally not allowed into the basement. My mother said that it was off limits because of something. I didn't know what it was, but I dared not to go there. "Look," said Valerie. "We need to go in there. It's the last place they will ever look." "But my mother told me we're not allowed in there," said Scott. "I don't even want to know where the basement would lead to." "They're probably in there," said Valerie. "We just have to look." "What's in there?" said Scott. "A workshop? What if we disturbed Dad and walked in there?" "Just forget it," said Valerie. "We looked in every room and they are neither in them. It's a lost cause. My dad is in there too. We have to get in the basement." After a bit of thinking, I think it might be time for me to explore the basement for the very first time. I slowly opened the door to the basement and walked inside. When we got downstairs, it looked like something I would never see before. It turned out to be some sort of workshop. The puppets were hanging on the ceiling by threads of string. On the other side, there was a table for where my dad has been making the puppets at home. My father was still allowed in the basement because he wanted to make some puppets. I now knew why I wasn't allowed in the basement. It was because my father had used it as a home workshop. I would usually see him come in and come out sometimes, but not all the time. How on earth could he keep this a secret from me? That didn't matter to me anyway, because I wanted to just see my family again, and probably rescue Valerie's father. Next to the left side, which might be the puppet room, there was a table with a white fabric cloth covering it. There was also a TV and a radio next to it. I wouldn't have to miss the news now that I think about it. I heard a strange noise coming in from behind the door. I walked over to it as Valerie followed me. I could hear something familiar. It looked like some voices muffling. I think it sounded like my family. "I think they must be in here," said Scott. "And it looks like the puppets also got your dad in there too, Valerie." "They're setting up a trap, I assume," said Valerie. I wouldn't trust it. But I have ignored her warning and opened the door. What I found was another room. It had a red mug with the walls being painted black. Inside of it is a lamp, a brown coffee table, a bookshelf, a mirror, a white couch, and 3 chairs. Some people were sitting on them. I quickly ran inside and found out that my family was in there. However, they weren't making any sounds at all. So the muffled voices are coming from the radio. I don't even know how it was able to play. When I examined them more closely, I could see that their arms, hands, feet, legs, and head were all attached with strings. I guess I have learned something that I have never seen before, and it may look like we might have more information about this. In the corner of the room, I could see Valerie's father sitting down, looking up at the ceiling. I have no clue what he was looking at for a moment there, but it wasn't a good sign at all. That's when I noticed something. Next to the couch is Paws and Smiler. They were all standing there, looking at me. They've noticed that we got in. I feared that what would happen next would never just leave me. Valerie walked in and saw what was happening. "I didn't know that would happen next," said Kent. "I believe that the puppets have turned your family into them." "That's what happens if he catches my family?" said Scott. "Dad, Mom, Eddie, Susan, we have to go now!" "They can't hear you," said Kent. "Once they become the puppets, they remain like this. I don't know how I'm able to reverse the spell, but it looks like we could all be next. And I don't want this to happen. I've watched in horror as the strings attached to my family made them dance around. I don't know what might be controlling them, but a part of me said that I shouldn't. As I backed away, the puppets touched her father, and he was knocked out cold. You might be wondering how that happened to him. I'll explain this. Upon touching Valerie's father, they shot a small jolt of light for 1 second, making him dead as a doornail. I looked at my necklace as I examined it real closely. Could the necklace cause the puppets to become self-aware after 3 days? I don't know where they came from, but I looked into the gems to see something. They were made in a small village about a few years ago. They were obtained in a rare part of a cave. It came from some sort of huge rock that fell from space ages ago. When the gems were cut off from the rock, it changes color. These gems gave people the ability to control something with their thoughts, and that they could do amazing tricks. After a certain amount of time, most people have vanished and transformed into something that I couldn't even know. Some people have reported that the dolls came to life and that they were not controlled by their thoughts. This is something I didn't even know that could happen. Valerie and I watched as my family walked over to her dad. Strings popped out of him and reached into the ceiling. As soon as my dad got up, they started to dance around. They weren't even speaking. We couldn't stand by and watch this anymore. So we ran out of the room and got upstairs as quickly as we can. When we got to the front door, I could see Paws shutting the door in front of us. How was he able to do any of that? We quickly ran up to the living room and looked out the window. We could see something out of it the moment we looked outside. It looked like our town alright, but there was no stars and no one driving by. Now I am starting to get worried about what was going on. Have the puppets made everyone vanish? Smiler was right behind us and preparing to have us cornered. As quick as we could, we ran upstairs to my room and locked the door. I don't bother getting out of my room any moment now. But at the very least, I didn't want the puppets looking for me anymore. I took off the necklace and placed it on my desk. I've been thinking that if I don't think about them entering my room, then I would be safe. That's what I thought. Valerie sat down right next to me as we waited for the morning sun to rise. By the time it will be day, we will be able to leave. We waited and waited. At some point in time, we fell asleep on the floor. We were getting very tired after a long day after all and thought we might need to get some rest. At 6:30 in the morning, we woke up to find that there is no sun either. We checked the window and thought that we had slept for a few hours. But as we checked the clock, we didn't. This turned out to be much weirder than we thought it would be. I joked that we must have slept for too long and ended up waking up in the evening. So far, we have not yet seen the puppets, but we went downstairs and went to the front door. As we walked out of the house and stepped outside, we suddenly stopped to see that it was Paws standing right in front of us, holding a thread of string. We quickly got out of its way and ran through the street. No one is passing by or even getting near us. We couldn't even see a single car coming by. It was like the town I was living at had somehow become a ghost town. I had no idea what was going on. We had no idea where to go. We eventually stopped at my dad's toy shop where we went inside and looked around. At first, we thought that no one is there, but to our surprise, we found out that a group of people were inside of the theater sitting down in their seats. They expect that we must be the new showrunners and that they had came to see a show. When we approached the stage, we tried to find if there are any puppets laying around on the floor. The audience was not moving. They were sitting still, as if they are statues that you would see in a park. I had no clue what was happening too until the lights in the theater came on. However, the spotlights were placed on both me and Valerie. I looked up from the ceiling to find out that Smiler and Paws were staring down at us. They looked very huge and were wearing the same necklaces that me and my brother had been wearing. The strings were about to be dropped from above, but we quickly got off the stage before they were attached to us. The moment we got off from the stage, the audience was gone, and so were the puppets. We quickly ran out of the toy shop and found that it was daytime. Were the crystals messing with us? My question was answered when we looked around to see that the people and cars were roaming about in the town again. That means we still have a chance of making it out of town before it was too late. When we looked from behind, the puppets as well as my family members, who are now puppets, were all after us. We decided to run away from them as quick as we could, before we lost track of them. We made it to the docks before it was too late. We got on the next boat out of Nantucket. I looked down at the ocean and looked at myself. I couldn't stop thinking about the family I will miss. I can't imagine everything that would happen if we had not made it out of here. As the years passed, we became famous for our puppet shows. We made it on live talk shows, radio interviews, and even made the cover of a popular magazine. People will come over and see our shows for dozens of years to pass. Our big moment came after we graduated. We opened up our own theater in Hartford, where we would be hosting our own puppet shows, but also expanded to other performances as well. That includes concerts, magic shows, dance shows, and even musicals. We never knew we would be famous for years to come. We never had to worry about another visit from Smiler and Paws, because if they followed us here, then we would be the puppets. Now you know the story about these puppets. I didn't want to tell everyone this until now, and it's something that I haven't told in a long time. For the long run, I lived a good life, and now it was time for us to move on to the next chapter in our goals. For all I know, I might be just a little off. I just needed some time to get away from all of the puppet shows we have been producing. But I can't shake this feeling off. Over the years since I left, I began to notice that I felt like I was being controlled by strings. Now I found out why that might be possible. The lights went out in my room as the walls opened up, revealing an entire audience of people. I couldn't speak somehow. All I heard and saw was the audience cheering and clapping their hands. I looked up to see that Paws and Smiler were looking down at me, holding what appears to be marionette controllers. Valerie was somehow next to me, not speaking either. Then it was my family and Valerie's father. It looks like the puppets were setting this up for all these years we have waited, finally getting us, controlling us for their shows. There was no way out of this, other than the fact that we are all puppets. There was no way out of this, other than the fact that we were all puppets, forever. In fact, we have always been puppets our entire life, and the story of our life is just a performance for everyone to see. We were laughed, cheered, and even looked at for their own amusement. I wish we would be free one day, but it will never come to that. The even stranger thing about this is that Smiler and Paws were never puppets.